Now, the general understanding is that the Jewish religion is monotheistic. It is the belief in only one God. It's the same case with Christianity. It's the same case, of course, with Islam, and maybe some other religions. There might be other religions out there that believe in one God and not many gods. And of course, there are other religions that believe that are polyistic, meaning they believe in existence of many gods out there. Now, with that understanding, especially the understanding that the Jewish religion and the Christian religion and the Islam religion, and these three religions kind of recognize the Old Testament of the Bible, and it forms part of what is the core belief of these religions. With that understanding, then there are a few scriptures in the Old Testament that are interesting, or that are that raise eyebrows, or that kind of like conflict this core belief of one God. And in fact, personally, I've been confused or perplexed. Let me use the word that Maimonides uses for his book. I've been perplexed about these verses, especially there is one verse. I think both verses are in the book of Genesis. Now, there is this verse, it's Genesis chapter 1, verse 26, and it reads, "Let us make man in our image." And Maimonides tells us that in the Hebrew language, image is zelem, which he prefers using because of how he's trying to show us what that really means. And another one is in the book of Genesis 11, verse 7, where it says, go to go to it says, "Let's us go down and there confound their language." And I think this verse comes around where we are told about the the Babel, the Tower of Babel, which the Bible kind of describes as the root cause of the so many languages we have in the world. Could be it's figurative. Like Maimonides tells us, these things are not literal. Could be figurative language used there. But anyway, so that's a verse that appears around that, where there is a talk of the Tower of Babel, which is used to explain the many languages we have around. Now, these two verses, "Let us make man in our image," it uses the word "us." "Let us go down," there is the word "us." And here it's about God. It's God saying, "Let us make man in our image. Let us go down." God saying this, "Let us go down and confound their language." Now, Christians have tried to explain this. They've tried to explain this through the Trinity: God the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. So Christians have tried to explain that those verses as God saying "us," and they interpret it to mean God is saying "us," meaning God the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. But that could be problematic, especially when you consider that the concept of the Holy Trinity is a more relatively recent phenomenon. It's not something that even the Jews recognize. They don't recognize. They are the ones who have had that book before the Christians. Even though Christians kind of then take Jewish religion as the foundation of Christianity. But that book has been there for thousands of years before Christ. And due all that time, the concept of Trinity never appeared anywhere. The concept of Trinity started appearing. In fact, it didn't even appear during Jesus being around. When you read different sources, this is a concept that has come much later, much later. So then we have an issue. We have something that is difficult still. Then it becomes really hard to say. It becomes "let us" because of the concept of the Holy Trinity. Now, Maimonides has his own, and I'm not saying this to say that the approach of Christianity is wrong. No, that's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not an authority to say that. I'm just expressing my personal opinion on that, or also what other people might say. So Maimonides also has his own take, and I don't want to say his take is the correct one. That's not what I'm saying. I'm here just to tell you what Maimonides says about these "us" used in Genesis. Now, for him, he combines his own understanding with what he gets from Aristotle. And you are going to be like, what does Aristotle have to do with this? First, Aristotle was not a Jew, was not a Jewish person. He was not a Christian. He was somebody totally outside those religions. But Aristotle was a philosopher, and Aristotle had this thing that he called the theory of intelligences. And Maimonides speaks that thing, the theory of intelligence. And this is based on the understanding that the universe out there is not inanimate. It has a soul. Yes, that's what Maimonides believes. And his understanding of this comes out of the movement of the universe. And he concludes that him and Aristotle, yeah, they conclude that that movement of the universe, the earth is moving around the sun. Of course, for them, they believe the sun moved around the earth, and the stars moved around the earth, and the moon moved around the earth, and everything else moved around the earth. But even though that's how they saw it, the argument still makes sense even with our modern understanding that the earth is moving around the sun, and the moon around the earth, and the stars are other suns that have their solar system with their own planets, and blah blah blah. Now, for Aristotle and Maimonides, the fact that these heavenly bodies are moving, it means that there is something that makes them move. And Aristotle concludes they are moving because they are trying to achieve an ideal. And that can only happen if they are either themselves intelligent, or there is an intelligence that makes them move. So even the earth itself, either the earth is intelligent itself, or there is an intelligence that is making it move around the sun and also spin on its own axis. So Aristotle concludes that this intelligence is not one. He concludes that every one of those moving bodies either is intelligent itself, or has its own intelligence that makes it move. And that Maimonides accepts that argument. I was reading the book and I was like, it was also possible for him to, based on his Jewish beliefs and the belief in one God, it was so easy for him to discredit that argument, but he embraces it, and he says he agrees with Aristotle that those heavenly bodies, either they are intelligent themselves, or they are driven by intelligences. And that's where the theory of intelligences comes from. And he says only ignorant people believe that the heavenly bodies are inanimate. And he says there are some parts of the universe that are inanimate, but there are other parts that are animate. And he gives an example of a human body. There are some parts of the human body that are inanimate, for example, the bones, and the other parts that are animate, like the flesh, blah, blah, blah. And he says the same thing with the universe. And in fact, he says the human is a microsome. Is that the word microsome? Like, is the smaller version of what the universe is? Something like that. So for Aristotle, there are many intelligences, and Maimonides accepts that argument. But now Maimonides goes a step further and says those intelligences that Aristotle talks about, the many ones, and of course there is the overall intelligence, which will be like the first cause, and for Maimonides, that is God. He says these smaller intelligences that operate under the first force, or God, he calls them angels. He calls them angels. Now he says, and that's where the us comes from in those two verses in the Bible. He says, let us make man in our own image. He says God is speaking, telling the angels that are the intelligences that let's make man our own image. And I've explained in another video, Maimonides tells us that does not mean in terms of form and substance, but in terms of divine intelligence, that humans are going to have that divine intelligence that other animals don't have. Personally, I don't believe we are the only animals that have intelligence. I believe we see ants building colonies. I believe they are as intelligent as humans, but that's my personal opinion. It's generally believed that we are the only ones who are intelligent anyways. So Maimonides tells us that us comes from God, the first force, talking to angels, the intelligences that drive the different parts of the universe.